Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us after the premiere of episode 306. So I see we already have a few people here in the group, and so who's here? Some of our usual suspects. I see Kimberly is here. Welcome, Kimberly. Glad to see you here. Who else? Hello, Cindy Bennett. Good to see you here again. So you guys just came from the story. So tell me a little bit about what stood out to you. Help me understand what to you, the audience, were most moved by, most impressed by. Hello, Midwest Mama and Ninel. Welcome. Appreciate you being here and joining us and participating in the live event. So tell me a little bit about what kind of things stood out to you about this story. The young boy says, Brina Boo. Yeah, it's not very often that we interview children. And when we do, you kind of never really have an idea of what to expect. But he really stood out. He really, he clearly was informed and judging by the hat, obviously a fan of the DEA. And he was a pleasure to talk to. He seemed very motivated and had a good grasp on stuff. Um, Midwest Mama again. Don't take anything unless it's from a pharmacy. Nay nay, nay nay. Okay, nay nay. I might remember that for a little while. We'll see how that goes. Mature beyond his years. Yeah, he is. He's also motivated. That's really the thing that stuck out to me about that wonderful little boy Cameron. He's motivated. He really wants people to be aware of the dangers of fentanyl. And that's an admirable thing that he is so young and so informed. And so for him, he's on a mission, it seems like. Impressive, I thought. So we're back in town. We were out of town for the last 5 days in where were we? Ridgeland, Mississippi, which is very close to Jackson, and we recorded more fentanyl stories there, and also a few recovery stories that are really impactful, and we'll be bringing those. When as the Christmas season draws closer, we try to include more stories on our channel that are stories of victory, and so we have a few recovery stories that we will be working on and getting them on time. Does it take that long for an autopsy? Brina Boo says, and yeah, it can. That there isn't in some jurisdictions the autopsy process really hasn't evolved much because they don't see the kind of volume that demands it. And so this must be one of those places. Kimberly says he's very smart, and I know his mom's spirit is proud of her son for sure. I think that's a I don't know. It it keeps his mother alive, keeps his mother in a place where her loss is helping others, and that's pretty admirable of the young boy. So I was talking with someone earlier this evening who used to work with the DEA, and he brought up this idea that seemed like a pretty brilliant idea to me. For those of you who have watched many of our stories, you've probably noticed a recurring theme that law enforcement oftentimes don't really do anything about investigating what happened in the case of the lost loved one. And sometimes law enforcement will say there's no point because the prosecutors won't take the case. And that can certainly be the case. That was one of the things when I was talking with a guy who's with the DEA. That was one of the things that he brought up was prosecutors don't want cases like this. That they're just not interested in pursuing them. And so his idea was to have a kind of standardized process, a standardized process for all law enforcement to follow when it comes to investigating investigating what appears to be a drug related fatality, call it an overdose or poisoning, that at the initial stages you can't tell, you can't be sure that fentanyl was even involved. It could have been something else. But his idea was a standardized process, and that seemed brilliant to me because I hear so many families, so many bereaved parents, siblings, friends talk about how disappointed they are with law enforcement with regard to how they handled their loved one's case. Kimberly says, I never heard of fentanyl in 2000. Me neither. I think the the research that I've seen says that the fentanyl crisis began in 2013, so 12 years ago, and so yeah, 2000 it existed, but it was only being used in hospital settings and in legitimate kinds of applications. Midwest Mama says, "Oh yes, okay. This was the one that passed 9 years ago. That poor sister and mom, she feels like she lost not only her brother, but half of her mom." Hello, Brad. Good to see you here. Appreciate you joining us. Always cool to see Brad here. Is Carla here as well? Do we know? Perhaps, perhaps not. There's Carla. Law enforcement was awful in Rain's case, and that was in 2023. We hear that in our stories literally all the time. The vast majority of the stories never get any kind of justice, never get any kind of consideration, never get any kind of effort toward justice. Now some do, but they're the exception in our stories. And so that could mean that people who don't get any kind of justice are more likely to want to share their story. Could mean that. It seems more likely that it just feels futile. It feels futile to try because it's not investigated or it's not prosecuted, and it is perhaps feels like a waste of time. Midwest Mama says, "How did it take over so much area so fast?" It was fast, and the reason more than anything is that fentanyl is a cheap substitute to put in counterfeit pills. That unless the dose in the pill is lethal, users, buyers never know the difference. And so that's what happens. Kimberly says, I have encouraged my unhoused guys to stay clean. Yeah, that's all you can do is encourage them. They have to want it. They have to commit to going through the detox and dealing with withdrawal. Midwest Mama says, I think it's too big of a problem for local law enforcement, and they know it's too big. They can't fix this epidemic. Seems like they don't try and push it under the rug. So sad. Yeah, it feels to me like some of that is happening. Now, I get that it's a big problem, but I don't think that really matters so much at the local level. If there is a crime, it should be investigated. It may be that law enforcement feels like both sides are criminals because it's in a drug deal, the dealer is breaking the law, but so is the buyer. And that's one of those things that's sort of a elephant in the room that people don't like to much talk about because you still should be able to have faith that you're being sold what you're told you're being sold. When are you going to come through Oklahoma City? I do not know. Maybe there's something. I feel like there's something that is just in the early developmental stages that is in Oklahoma City. That's something we've been talking about, but it hasn't happened much lately. So I was saying before, we were on the road for almost a week going to Jackson, Mississippi, and back. While we were there, stayed with a friend from high school, and had a great time spending time with him, having that chance to catch up, and reminisce, and talk about things that are going on. It was a very cool little intermission while we were there shooting stories in Ridgeland. Midwest Mama says, but the families deserve justice no matter what. Yeah, that's how the system is supposed to work. A prosecutor should not be picking and choosing which laws they enforce, which ones they prosecute, and which ones they don't. That is not the place of a prosecutor. Prosecutors should not be making law. And so they can just lean back and say, well, I'm not going to prosecute this kind of case anymore. That's making law. With that simple decision, they change the status of whatever case it is from being a criminal act to not. It's technically illegal, but if no one's prosecuting it, it's legal. If there's no risk of prosecution, they have made it legal. And that seems to me to be something that is profoundly wrong for any prosecutor to do. To pick and choose. I'm not going to enforce that law. I'm going to enforce this one. I'm not going to prosecute violating that law. I'm just going to prosecute violations of these laws. That's not how law is supposed to work. Law law is made by legislators, by elected folks. It baffles me that a district attorney could could feel like it's okay to look at a law and say, "Yeah, we're just going to let that one go." How is that okay? Voters should be profoundly irritated that a district attorney, which is oftentimes an elected office, can do that, can just up and decide, nah, we'll let him go. And that's not how law works. Kimberly says families are supposed to get justice. They certainly are. And Carla says it doesn't matter if someone tried something one time or if they are an addict. Whoever sold or gave them the poison that contains fentanyl, they should face serious charges. That's it. Carla's right. It shouldn't. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. The circumstances shouldn't matter. Somebody caused another person's death, and maybe the deceased did something that reflected poor judgment, but that is not that's a non-issue. That doesn't belong in considerations. And so I'm sorry, I got distracted. So I just it baffles me that that kind of mentality that somehow it's the circumstances that make it not count as much. That's aside from it being stupid. Part of the role of law is that risk of being incarcerated for your actions is a deterrent for some. But if you stop prosecuting some laws, then you take that deterrent element away. If you don't prosecute them because you feel like you can't win, well, that's cheating. You know, if you turn cases away, y- your 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 conviction rate isn't accurate. You're manipulating your conviction rate by not pursuing every case with conviction. Stacy J, thank you very much. This kind of thing, it means so much to us. It really it makes my heart smile. And Stacy says, as a senior citizen, I have gotten pain pills on the black market before. Thanks to your channel and all the people who have told their stories, I know never to do that again. Quite literally saved my life. Well, I'm glad you're here, Stacy. Glad you're here. Not just in the live event. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're still around. And I appreciate you being here on another level as well, because I think probably that makes me younger because I'm not the oldest guy in the room, or second oldest, because well, Brad is here, and Brad's an old guy. Carlos says a lot of children and teens have died from one pill one time. Teens don't always make good decisions, but neither do adults. It doesn't mean they deserve to die from a mistake. Certainly. Absolutely. I firmly believe in prosecuting dealers to the full extent of the law, to put them under the jail. But I believe part of why it doesn't really often work that way is because law enforcement views both sides of the transaction as being criminal. That's my theory. Kimberly says we as parents can't bring our children back from the ugly poison. Brad is asking about Knox. Nothing new from Knox. Midwest Mama says, is the black market not watched by law enforcement in any way? It is. It is. There are investigations. There's entire divisions within law enforcement that focuses on narcotics or narcotics trafficking. So, how do we stop this? The key has to be addressing the demand. The demand is a thing, the demand drives everything because drugs, illicit drugs, are a business. Cartels aren't making these pills because they're trying to make a political statement. They're trying to make money, just like any other business. You have to earn to survive as a business. And so for for the drug cartels, it is cheaper, far cheaper to manufacture these counterfeit pills and make them look like legitimate pharmaceuticals than it is to find a way to get the legitimate pharmaceutical. So they make the counterfeits and people buy them and keep buying them until they get a hot one and then they die. Or they overdose and they're revived by naloxone, the little spray up the nose thing. Naloxone. Narcan is the common brand name, but the active ingredient is naloxone. And there is a lot of other brands out there that don't say Narcan, but they work absolutely the same. They are just as effective. And some, like this one, this is actually a Cloxado nasal sprayer. And Cloxado delivers an 8 milligram dose of naloxone, Narcan, and the others deliver a 4 milligram dose. Midwestern Mama says, but how are they making money when buyers are passing away from the product? Well, that's the thing. That's really a common question. And part of how they're making money is that not everyone's dying from them. Most most users get a reasonable dose and survive. The problem is the this illicit manufacturing process with pill presses and all of that, the way that the active ingredient, the fentanyl or whatever is put in there, the way it's put in there isn't measured precisely. And if just a few grains of sand worth of fentanyl can be lethal, measuring precisely is certainly critical. But the process doesn't allow for that. And so even though they kill a lot of people, there's a lot of people who use it, get whatever kind of feeling that they're wanting to get, and never know the difference. Carla, thank you. Me and Sherry are going to have a good Thanksgiving. We're going to have some family in and do all that cool stuff. Brad says, I don't know if you ever watch Landman, but it shows you the power of the Mexican drug lords. Well, that sounds interesting. That is, that's certainly a thing. Carla says there's so much, not just demand, it's lack of mental health care. It's unresolved trauma. It's so much and it's so complicated. You're right. You're right. But the unresolved trauma creates a demand as well. And so does PTSD. So does mental health issues. The demand isn't necessarily just people looking to get high or have some sort of a kick experience. All of those things contribute to demand. So when I say that the way to fix this is to address demand, I don't mean start throwing users in jail. I mean get to the bottom of it. Get to the root issue that drives sales. Because if sales goes away, where fentanyl comes from wouldn't matter at all. It just wouldn't matter at all. If no one's interested in buying it, the supply will go away. Stacy says, I wonder why we can't make an effective pill that doesn't give off euphoric side effects. Maybe there's less demand for that. Maybe if you're just faced with the opportunity to take something that'll give you a euphoric feeling as opposed to not, wouldn't it just be human nature to gravitate towards the euphoric feeling? Kimberly says, Carla, are you going to do special Thanksgiving for rain? That could be a good thing, Carla. A kind of Thanksgiving thing where you and family members get together and kind of reminisce about rain and I don't know. Seems like that could be a good thing. Carla says, Kimberly, the holidays are incredibly painful. I feel like I'm shutting down. And Carla says that tomorrow I'm going to her grave to decorate it for Christmas. And that seems like a very cool, very productive kind of thing because you're really you're really getting to spend some time with rain. Not the kind of time that would much more appeal to you, but it's something substantial. It seems like a really, really great thing to do. Kimberly says, Carla, if you were here in Memphis, I'd give you a hug. The dogs. Carla says, thank you, Kimberly. So this idea, I've really been captivated by this idea of having some sort of standardized process for investigating poisoning deaths, overdoses, what, whatever they get labeled initially, because you can't know what the cause is until after toxicology report, autopsy, whatever. And so a standardized process for how to deal with that seems like the ideal way to go. Kimberly says, I wish I knew you in real life. You sound incredible, kind of empathetic. And Brad asks if the dogs are friendly. Yeah, they are. They are friendly. They get all excited when anyone pulls into the driveway or anything like that. But they're all talk. Brad, the traffic in Houston is awesome. You just come see. You just got to come see for yourself. You should. You and Ann could go to Galveston, spend some time on the beach. Beaches. We have beaches here. unlike Oklahoma. So we have been here a little over 30 minutes. We have 24 people in the room right now, and we have 6 thumbs up. That's it, just six. Just six. Kimberly says, "It's sunny. I express traffic. I express awareness very strong." I said traffic. Brad, you see what you're doing? Sunny, I express awareness very strongly. Kimberly, it seems like you're doing things for awareness every single day. That that you have so much going on. It's just it's really impressive. So Brenda, we're not hearing much from Brenda today. I feel like I saw a comment from her earlier. There it is. Brenda says that dealers are called plugs now. Yeah, Brenda, I knew that. I don't know that all of our audience knows that. Well, they do now, but yeah, I was aware about the plug, the plug that can hook you up. Yeah. I've heard about plugs a bit. Brad says Happy Thanksgiving. Exactly, Brad. Happy Thanksgiving. This could be it until after Thanksgiving in terms of live events. Could be. So Kimberly says unhoused people aren't really taking fentanyl seriously. Yeah, I've heard that a lot of people don't take fentanyl seriously until it touches their lives, until they lose a loved one or uh, a close friend loses a loved one or something like that. That until then, it doesn't get much consideration at all. The way that I learned about fentanyl was because the DEA hired us to create stories like the ones in the series almost 3 years ago, like just a couple of weeks shy of 3 years ago, when we started doing these stories. Midwest Mama says she's jumping off to watch episode 306, Heaven's Story. I'm sorry for your loss, Rain's mama, Carla. Thank you for being here, Midwest Mama. Appreciate you joining us. The real creative minds. Hello, Glenn and chat. I gave you a thumbs up. Good job. Thank you very much. We're up to 8 now. 28 people in the room and 8 thumbs up. Okay. Why the logo changed at the beginning of the last 3 or 4 episodes? The logo change meaning the stories that matter sequence with the says human trafficking and domestic violence, fentanyl poisoning, cannabis psychosis, and the other things that it says. Is that the one? We try to mix it up some, but I really like that one because in short order and very simply, the sequence lets our audience know that there's a lot of topics that we're addressing on our channel. Hold on a second. I don't know if you guys heard that, but that was that was someone turning on a TV. So Brenda says yes, the scrolling sequence. It's just a very simple sequence that communicates that message. Are you complaining, Brenda? Do you not like it? Do you feel like is there something about it that bugs you? One person commented that it could trigger an epileptic seizure. Brianna says fentanyl was too depressing for this time of year. We do have some recovery stories coming, and we have another story like Saving Gray and Saving Ben. This one will be called Saving Maddie, and we are in the early stages of editing with that one, and it will be available. It will be published. We'll have a premiere sometime soon, in the next week or two. So, Brenda, do you not like the opening sequence? I feel like the other one that we've used some is the stories that matter sequence that's much more elaborate. It has a lot of production in it. Risk says do at least one recovery story. Seriously. Well, Risk, we're probably going to be doing three or more before Christmas or before the new year. Maybe one, I don't know. We certainly have plenty more fentanyl stories that we recorded that we just need to edit, which is not a fast process. But there's at least three stories that we shot about recovery when we were in Ridgeland, Mississippi. In Ridgeland, Mississippi is where I put this shirt on today. Got on the road very early to get back to Houston, and here we are. So yes, we do have some recovery stories that we're going to be publishing during the season, during the Christmas season, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Uh, Brianna says, I do just the lives when I can. And I appreciate you being here, Brianna. And I'm sure everybody else does too. Risk says, hot damn. Risk, you got to be more specific. I don't know what to do with that. Brenda says, you're the boss. You know what opening is best for your product. I just, what I like about the opening is that I'm sorry, I got distracted again. Yes, I want the scroll back. And four of us told her she was crazy that sequence could not cause seizures. Yeah, I don't. We used the scroll for this one. We used it. I can even bring it up again. Here is the uh, so this is the sequence that we used this morning or this morning. This is the sequence we used at the beginning of the live event. And that's the scroll, right? That's the one that's supposed to be a trigger for seizures. Midwest Mama says, but it's real. It's real, and parents are going through a holiday still wanting loved ones remembered, and we are working our way through what we have. Holidays, I know for bereaved parents, holidays are definitely a tough time, and we do what we can. Risk is asking Carla if she's here. She is here. What is the black market? I never heard it. The black market is just a slang term that talks about ways to buy illegal things. You buy them off the black market. Midwest Mama says, I love the entry, meaning that opening sequence that runs through all the different topics that we're addressing. And the list will continue to grow. Okay, Brenda, and do you like it? Do you not like it? Are you we use it. Risk says every country has a black market. Yeah, black market is a kind of a broad, vague kind of terminology that includes any kind of illegal trade, hence the word market. Kimberly, some people call it the underground market or unseen economy. Well, that's good. See, clearly Brenda reads stuff. Oh, good job, Brenda. Because that's right. That's right. It is it's a kind of a broad catch-all category for illegal transactions, illegal selling is the black market. Risk says money talks and BS walks. Yeah, it is. Money's the thing. If there wasn't money in fentanyl, cartels wouldn't be dealing with it. It's a thing. Money is a thing. So we have been here for almost 50 minutes, and we are probably going to wrap it up very soon because, like I said, my day started this morning very early near Ridgeland, Mississippi. Drove all the way back and then immediately started editing another story, which is kind of ridiculous. Kimberly says that makes my stomach turn. Brenda says, I love the scroll. I find the loop that opened the last few episodes boring. The beginning is not where you want to lose a viewer's interest. The beginning, is that the one with the stories that matter thing with excerpts from a bunch of different stories? Leak Elder, thank you for everything you do. I OD'd on fentanyl in 2014, got sober 4 years ago, and continue to watch your videos, hoping they will continue to save more souls. Well, thank you, Leak. We always really appreciate hearing those kinds of things. You realize we also have a series of addiction recovery stories. There's about 55 episodes right now, and it's also on our channel. If you haven't had a chance to explore those are Those are pretty fascinating stories, and goodness, there is a bunch of them. And so I will put a link to the playlist as soon as I find it. Here we go. All right, there's a link to the playlist right there, from addiction to recovery. Brenda says, Lee, congrats. Today I am at 445 days clean off of illicit fentanyl pills and powder. Thanks for being here and stay strong. Brenda is awesome like that. Lee Calder, yes, I watch all your videos. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Rish says, I'm okay, Carla. I just keeping on. And Brenda says, no, just the Frozen logo that has opened the last few stories. Oh, okay. The Frozen logo. I see. Okay. I understand. All right. Well, hmm. So we are going to wrap it up, folks, as it is getting late. This premiere was later than usual because I wanted to give plenty of time for me to get home and get everything set back up so that we can do these things. Carla says that holidays are so hard. I'm sure they are, Carla. You can come down to Houston, and we can, I don't know, do something. Midwest Mom is asking, when is Rain's birthday? I don't remember that. I believe I've seen it, but I don't remember. But it is going to be time to wrap it up, folks. Because holy cow, we have been here for over 50 minutes. Rain's birthday, or yeah, Rain's birthday is October 2nd. Brenda says, leak these videos have kept me clean, so I play them on a loop. Now I look forward to watch one when to watch one will be playing when I wake up in the morning. Yes, I sleep with the TV on. Aha. And Brenda with her wonderful closing message, asking everyone to remember that what you take for granted, someone else is praying for. That's so profound, and that's such a thing that people should embrace, to find things in your life you have to be grateful for. And we all have those things, regardless of how rough other aspects of your life are. We have those things too. Brenda says, I take my keyboard for granted, and tonight Glenn wishes I couldn't type, but he knows I will be forever grateful to him in my life. Thank you, Brenda. I'm glad you can type. I don't want you to stop typing. You contribute a lot. You and Brad contributes a lot. Carla contributes a lot. Kimberly contributes a lot, and so do others. I should have never gone down that name and names road because names escape me. So I believe it is time to wrap it up. I am pretty beat. My day started very early, and I still have some business stuff to do. But I am very grateful for you guys all joining us. And it is always a wonderful time to get to spend these live events with you guys interacting and talking about issues that are important and things that are going on, and I love how you guys help each other. I'm not even in the loop. I'm just sitting here reading the chats and watching it happen. So that's pretty awesome. Anyway, it's time to wrap it up for now. And so I always like to remind you guys that you can email us at info@texas-pictures.com. You can also find us on Facebook under my name, Glenn Muse. We have a presence on TikTok, but there isn't a lot of interaction to that. And you can also learn more about us on our website, texas-pictures.com. On our homepage, you'll find a link to an information page that describes the process of sharing your story. There's also a link to our merchandise store on the homepage and more information on the website about Texas Pictures, where we came from, and all of that kind of cool stuff. So please feel free to explore and please. Oh, sorry, Risk. I didn't see your question. Glenn, do you use Apple to edit or the other? Well, I use the other. I use a PC, a Windows PC, a laptop. Actually, I have two of them. So anyway, Risk, we can delve into more questions along those lines if you like during the next live that you're a part of. So thank you all again for joining us. Remember, you can reach out anytime. So that's going to be it for tonight, folks. So I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, and I look forward to seeing you guys again very soon. Until then, I wish you all a good night.